Hello, people. We're back. We are living NLP.
I'm Nicholas Rave.
I am Morgan Lane Bennett.
And we are here to talk about how much NLP and hypnosis rocks.
Indeed.
The goal and intention of this podcast is to, what's the expression? Pull back the kimono, open the curtains, and you've never heard that?
That's cultural appropriation, bro.
Oh, sorry.
And get NLP out of your head and into the world.
Let you have a chance to listen to two people shoot the shit who are in the trenches every week and every day, living, eating, breathing, and shitting this stuff.
Living it. Letting it be who you are. And that's such a big part of when you finally know your stuff, whatever it is, hypnosis, NLP, whatever your job is. It's like when you actually become it, and it's like it becomes you, and you live the life of one who is and does what you are and do. That's what we're here to talk about with NLP.
So the way we break the podcast up is every week we come up with an anecdote about some way that we used NLP and hypnosis in our life, sometimes in the last week, but sometimes not each. And then we come up with a quote from something that we're studying that's relevant to hypnosis and NLP. And then we answer questions. So right here up front, just to let you know, if you're watching and or listening to this, to submit your questions. What is it? Like, comment, and subscribe. But most importantly, let us know if you have any questions that are related to hypnosis or NLP or really anything that you want to hear us tackle.
Ramble. Oh, sorry. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I was trying to find another way to say
ramble that. Upon. Give me some road to ramble down.
Okay. So this week, I'm really excited because Morgan flexed his NLP and hypnosis kung fu muscles so fucking hard this last week. I already heard this story because he posted it on Facebook, but if you haven't heard it, or even if you have, we're going to dive deep into this. Yeah. This is exactly the kind of shit that makes me go, like, this is how cool this stuff is. This is behavioral flexibility in action. So I'm going to shut the fuck up. Morgan, start with your anecdote.
Thank you. So this was, and it's one of those things that certainly wasn't something I thought about doing while I had no idea what was going to happen until it was happening and then essentially over. At which point I was like, living NLP, motherfucker. So, Friday night, I'm down in Main Street, Santa Monica, and it's 6:00. I park my car. I go get some pizza, a couple beers. 8:00, I'm walking back to my car. It's dark, but I'm walking on Main Street, Santa Monica, to my car, and I see 4 guys in it. Oh, the doors are open, and 4 guys are like rummaging through my car, and I'm like, So I walk up to them. They're fairly oblivious because they're like, "Wow, bonanza." I walk up to them, just one guy. They don't really know who I am yet. And I just walk up to the first guy who comes out of my car and I go, "Hey, man, give me a hug, man. Just come here, give me a hug." And I hug this guy and he's like, "What?" And I go to the next guy, I go, "Hey, dude, what's up, man? Give me a hug." And I give him a hug. And the third guy's like, what are you doing, man?" I go, "Well, it's the least you can do considering you're breaking into my car right now." And they're like, "What? Yeah, man." I go, "What'd you take? Did you take anything? Well, let's see." And they're like, "No, what? No, man. Look," it's like push me away and like threatening violence. And luckily, 2 of the guys were like, "This is weird. I'm getting out of here." They're just over to the side, and one guy's really drunk, and another guy, the bigger guy, my friend's like, "Oh, he's gonna hit you." I'm like, "Really? So what's going on with you, man?" And before he could really answer, he said, "Imagine this," and I said, "You just had some pizza and a couple beers, and you were walking out to your car, and you find you guys breaking into it." And they could just go, "Oh, man, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, man." And they give me a pound. They're like, "What's up, dude?" And then the other guy's like, "Oh, man, we're just young and drunk, man. It's cool. It's cool, man. We just, we're just out. We were looking for lames, but you're not lame." I'm like, "No, I'm not lame. No, I'm not lame. Would you take anything?" And then one of the other 2 guys is like, "Hey, man, you want a beer?" And I'm like, "Yes, I want a beer." And they have a bunch in their backpack. Like, which one of these beers do you want? It was 2 different guys. I'm like, "Give me this beer." I was like, "Thank you. I'll take this beer." And I was like, "Did you take any of my shit?" And I'm fairly certain they didn't because there's nothing in my car to take because that's the way the world is now. Don't leave anything in your car. So I took their beer and I sent them on their merry way. And it was an exercise in pattern interruption, that's for sure, because they wanted to fight so bad. They wanted so bad to fight because they were so embarrassed by being such a dirty little shitbird, and they didn't know what the fuck to do. And I came out on top with the beer and a great story, which of course is reminiscent of Darren Brown's story.
Yeah. Do you want to tell that?
You can talk about it. But I'd also done it one other time with someone other drunk guy who wanted to fight me in a bar or like Raider game or something stupid. And I just like, he did something. And I just put my hand on his chest and I went, shh. And I just pushed him gently to the ground till he was laying flat on the ground. And this is long before I ever knew, but I was still a model back then. This was before I was even a personal trainer, really. And I just like, for some reason, and he just went right down. And he was, I was as surprised as he was. And it was just like, and my buddy's like, what did you do? And he got back up. I'm like, cool, man, we good? Did you have a nice time down it? So yeah, it was in hindsight to be able to go, oh, cool. Like, what was I going to do? Fight four dudes who were taking
yeah, exactly.
in my car? What else could I have done other than like wait for them to leave or like whatever? Technically they could have been armed and they could have gone different ways, but literally before they even knew what was happening, the guy came out of my car and I'm like, hey man, give me a hug. And he just was like, boop, gone. So,
I have so much I want to say.
That's how you live NLP, I guess.
Okay. So
tell us what you're going to say for the Darren Brown thing.
Let me emphasize 2 points about this right off the gate. Number one, you walked up to 4 people robbing your car, and they apologized
profusely, each of them.
Okay, so just folks listening, okay, think about that. Like, think about how far you have to bring somebody from one side to the other side. Like, it's not that they went from being like defensive or aggressive to neutral. They went all the way to remorse. Like, they were supplicating. They went to the inside of that equation.
Which one of these beers can I give you, sir?
That was my second point. My second point is they didn't just apologize. They gave you beer. So you came out of a carjacking effectively.
Car breakery, yes.
Yeah, with more than you went into it.
Yeah.
And like, if that's not the spirit of NLP, I don't fucking know what is.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate that. I thought you'd get a kick out of it. Yeah. And, it's just, the intention was to not fight. The intention was to make it end soon. The intention was to teach them a lesson. And how could you do that in the quickest amount of time possible and have a good laugh about it? Because at the end, we were all laughing. They're like, we're just young and we're just out. They were drunk. They were just out, young kids having fun. They were probably in their early 20s. And I was like, yeah, man, I've been early. I get it, man. It's cool, man. Just fucking get the fuck out of here.
Didn't you say that they like at one point tried to backtrack and say that they literally fell into
that was
car?
The very last thing that they said was, oh yeah, my buddy, he's really drunk and he like fell over into your car and like accidentally, because I'm sure it's the same with everybody. Now you leave your car unlocked, there's the little door handle fairies that are always going to go by all day and night looking for so that's what they did, because for 2 hours in Santa Monica I didn't lock my car for once and I made 4 little friends.
Well, there's a lesson in there too about at any point in this, if you had turned it around and started to like shift shift it and like make them wrong, they would have almost certainly become defensive and aggressive again.
They wanted to fight me. They wanted to fight me. And at which point I was like, imagine this. And they were like, after the hug, they didn't know what to do. You don't fight.
Well, that last point about them saying like, I fell into your car. Like, so many people, when they're in discussions or they're in an argument with their spouse or whoever, the person will say something and you'll be like, I fucking know that's not true. Right. And I'm going to die on that hill. Right. And like for you, like at that point, you're just like, I'm sure. Because you're focused on a higher intention.
Yeah, they were just trying to save a little face.
Exactly. So let them. So fucking let them. You know.
So it's like Darren Brown thing, which is
yeah. You go ahead.
Sure, just a brief anecdote in a Darren Brown book. I forget which one. I think it's Tricks of the Mind. And he talks about how he was doing some kind of thing, and he was on a street corner sitting there doing something, waiting to get in and out of a gig or whatever. And a bunch of little hooligans walked up to him talking some kind of shit. And they were trying to scrap with them about something. And he said, the walls outside my house only go halfway up. And just made some random nonsense fucking, At which point, that's the hard right into, so what's up with you guys? Tell me about your stuff. What are you doing out here tonight? Kind of a thing. And it just broke the pattern of these people to where they ended up being buddies and hanging out, I think is his story. Like they ended up sitting down and talking for a little bit about their parents and, what their life was like. And it's a pattern interrupt. It's a straight up hypnosis. It's a handshake, instead of a handshake interrupt, it's a car brake interrupt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like
so let's talk about, there's so many different teaching points. We can't go into all of them here, but let's talk about rapport first and foremost. So when Darren Brown tells this story, I've heard him describe it in some detail. And he talks about how he matched the guy's physiology and tonality. He matched his energy level, his emotional energy. So he aggressively said, the wall outside my house only goes halfway up. And the guy is ready to come at him. And then the words hit his brain and he's like, what? And everything comes to a grinding halt. He said it multiple times. And then the guy just kind of couldn't go anywhere with it. It took the wind out of his sails.
Wait, what was I? Wasn't I going to be mad at you for something?
So then an interesting thing that he said, and I wonder how this probably is something you were managing as you're managing the emotions of these four different people, is that he said the guy actually had an emotional breakdown afterwards, because he said that he was so elevated before that when that had nowhere to go, they ended up sitting on the sidewalk and the guy was crying. There was an emotional release.
Went so far over to the other end.
Right.
He had to come and apologize to me and be like, dude, we're sorry, man. Here, how can we make it up to you, kind of a thing.
Yeah. Well, that might be because they didn't get too aggressive before you already interrupted their pattern. When you walk, I'm trying to put my mind in their reality. So I'm there, I'm in the car and my anxiety level is up, right? Because I know there's four of us, but the cops could come at any point. Somebody who owns this car could come at any point.
1 block from the police station, from the city hall. There's no smart these guys are. Literally kitty corner from the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium, which is where the police are.
Yeah. So you walk up, but before they even have a chance to react, you're like, "Hey man, give me a hug."
Into the middle of them, like, "What's up, guys?"
So your physiology indicates
that was not intentional. I had no idea what I was going to do until it was already happening.
So your physiology communicates to them that you're non-aggressive. So they might even imagine, I'm putting myself in their shoes and I'm thinking, this is another drunk guy. Right. Who the fuck is coming up and giving me a hug in the middle of this? This is just a dude who just came from a bar and he's drunk and he's giving us a hug. So, okay, fine. There's no threat here. And so then he gives you a hug and they're still trying to figure out who you are. And then you say, well, you're breaking into my car. And now they're like, what is happening? And so I think that there's so much. I wish it was filmed. I wish we could see it.
I was standing there talking to them, going, "God, I wish this was on film." But I'm not going to here's my phone. And let's
Yeah, no.
I was just standing there saying, I was just towards the end when they're all giving me "What's up, dude?" Oh man, I was just like, "God, I wish this was on film."
Just because I would love to see the unconscious ways that you were matching and mirroring the different people in the group. Because if you're in that, your situational awareness has to be monitoring all four people.
There's the main drunk dude, the big guy, and then the two who are kind of along for the ride.
Yeah.
And
Fuck, dude. As soon as you told the story, I immediately thought of the Darren Brown thing.
Right.
But I also thought, like, this is 4 dudes. This is like more complicated than one-on-one. One guy who's aggressive wants to fight you. You're managing 4 people. And again, that thought of what if they're armed? I mean, they might have been. You don't fucking know, but you managed it anyway. Right. There's an old saying that it's like the true martial artist doesn't have to fight. Like a true martial artist is capable of winning any fight, but the greatest martial artist won't even get into the fight. They will avoid the fight. They will figure out how to control the situation such that they never even have to. And I always think about like that scene in movies where the like super badass martial artist, whatever, and then the tough guy comes up and like threatens him, and the other guy doesn't fucking move. Right? Like, and then all of a sudden the tough guy is like, oh shit, this person's actually dangerous.
Right.
But there's something even more flexible than that, which is going to the place of like, I don't want to solve this with violence.
Right. I mean, I had the drop on him. I could have like, I mean, I'm not a fighter guy. I wouldn't want to risk my juggling hands by punching some drunk idiot in the back of the head.
Exactly.
But I mean, I definitely had the drop on them. So what could I do other than freak their minds out? And it's like times like that. That was unconscious for me. Like I said, I didn't walk down the street. I had a clear half a block to like. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew that I was going to go over there and make more friends. And
make more friends.
Make 4 friends. Yeah. It's afterwards you go, oh shit. Because I ask my clients all the time as one of the first questions when I'm meeting them at a consult, it's like, have you ever handled yourself really well in an emergency, or like some maybe small emergency, big emergency, something where you like, you got to the end of it and you're like, wow, I really handled that well. You know, yes, I have. And I can think of a specific time, or not specific, but I know the feeling, right? At which point I go, then you've tapped into the power of your unconscious mind and its ability to do things for you, blah, blah, blah. And then that's like a nice little in to show them that they already have the powers that I need them to use with me. And that's essentially that too. Like that's a time when I was like, whoa, cool. Right. It just happened because I live NLP. I honestly, I mean, I'm not, I'm not bragging into the 4 people who are watching this. Or Adrienne, hello. I live NLP. I am what I do. I do what I am, and I'm glad that it came out in a way that was a peaceful moment of some kind.
Well, I will just say, your kung fu is strong, my friend. And
I hadn't thought of it in those terms until you wrote about it.
And Can I fuck with our format here and share my quote next? Normally, I'd share an anecdote. The reason is this quote is actually super relevant to what you said, particularly about the idea of like you walked into this situation and you did not know what you were going to do. Okay, so folks listening, this is my quote. Hold on, There's a part 1 and then there's a footnote that I also have to reference here. So I got to get both pages. Okay. So the book that I'm referencing is called Phoenix by David Gordon and Maribeth Myers Anderson. David Gordon also wrote Therapeutic Metaphors. For anybody who's heard that book, that book's much more famous than this one. I love this book. This book's fabulous. It does not go into hypnosis quite as much as some of the other books that model Milton Erickson, but it's more structural. So this book talks about tasking, which is or deal therapy, which is something that Erickson was very big on, and talks about how he structures those things. There's a lot of behavioral flexibility stuff in here. It's really worth your time. So page 17, there's a quote that says, this is from Erickson. Admittedly, I'm going to read this a little faster than he probably would have said it. I always trust my unconscious. Now, too many psychotherapists try to plan what thinking they will do instead of waiting to see what the stimulus they receive is and then letting their unconscious mind respond to that stimulus. I don't attempt to structure my work except in a vague general way. And in that vague general way, the patient structures it. They structure it in accordance with their own needs. And the loose structure I allow them to discover bit by bit, some of the things they repressed don't know about them. What is it? Some of the things they've repressed don't know about themselves. Okay. There are a lot of things. It's Ericksonian language. Yeah. There are a lot of things. Oh, this is good. There are a lot of things we know that we don't know we know, but we need to know that we know it.
Yes, we need to know we don't know that we know that we don't know them.
Yes. You trust your unconscious, direct command. It is a very delightful way of living. Oh, this part here. It is a very delightful way of living, a very delightful way of accomplishing things. So then the footnote that the authors mentioned is, remember that Erickson's unconscious mind, that is his non-conscious computations, is already organized with respect to the patterns we and others have modeled here. In order for you or anyone else to be able to unconsciously produce Ericksonian therapeutic interactions and interventions, you must first train yourself to reproduce his computational patterns. So the first point here is that Erickson said you don't plan ahead of time exactly what structure and process you're going to take your clients through, that you show up and you respond to them.
Yes.
And then you can have a vague idea of what you're going to do. The way I tend to look at it is you want to hold on to your intentions loosely. You can come in with an intention or a direction or a strategy in mind, but if it becomes apparent very quickly that there's something else that their unconscious mind is presenting to you, or an intuition your unconscious mind is presenting to you, be ready to let go of what you had in mind before and go in that direction.
I hold on to my intentions very strong, but I hold on to the path to get there very lightly.
Right.
If it's something you guys thought, it's like you just trust your unconscious mind that I'm going to help this. I mean, I got this so many tools and all these books and everything in here. And if you study and you practice, you get it inside. And then when something presents itself, you go, this, that. And it's just like a sort of puzzle but I know I'm going to solve the puzzle is my main intention. How I solve it, that's totally up to them. Because like you said, it's.
So another overlap between this and Morgan's adventure of making 4 new friends, I think it has to do with state control. So state control is such a huge part of powerful NLP and hypnosis and influence in general, because if you can go into a situation and manage your state, you aren't being led by the situation. You have the opportunity to lead the situation. And the way I look at I don't know if I was in your shoes, what I would have done. I honestly don't. I'm being honest. I think if I saw 4 fucking people, I don't know if I would, because I think what I would do is first check inside and go, can I keep my shit together? And one of the things you mentioned was right beforehand can I tell this part? At the pizza place, you just made a new connection.
Yes, lovely lady. I had a wonderful time talking to some lovely lady at the bar who I'm going to see after this. So we got to end at 3:40. Okay.
So you left and you're like, fuck yeah. Like you're in a good state.
Oh, definitely a good state.
And if you were in a shitty place, or you just come from the fucking DMV or something like this, and you might have been in a place where confronting or not confronting or handling those 4 guys might not have been a smart move.
Maybe, yeah.
So again, it comes back to state control. If you can stay relaxed and calm and
I was definitely smiling the whole time, which also probably threw them off.
Yeah.
I was like, are you kidding me? You're breaking into my car? And you're like, I was just pointing out the absurdity of it all. I was like, you want to fight me because you're breaking into my car? They're like,
so listen, NL peeps and master hypnotist paying attention. He just said, I was smiling the whole time. But remember, there's an important point about state control. It's not just the physiology. There's a lot of people I know who are like, put on a confident physiology and that's all there is to it. Yes, your state will follow your physiology largely, but I think there's more to Morgan was genuinely feeling like as calm as possible and open. And
as soon as I knew I had him, like I was like, that's when I went on the attack.
Yes.
Not doing anything. That's when I was like, oh, now that I have your attention, imagine this.
So think about this. One of the most resourceful states is, Richard Bandler used to say this, curiosity is one of the most resourceful states. The other sense that you get from this is that very quickly into the experience, Morgan was having fun. He was being playful. He was like, this is fun. If you're in that space, then you're in a good state to be in flow, that they call it, to be in tune with your unconscious, to be open to being led from something inside instead of being directed from what's going on outside.
Yeah.
So the other point, the footnote in reference to that quote was largely about the idea that that trust your unconscious mind is good advice. And your unconscious mind is not like God, like it's not omniscient. It doesn't know everything. Your unconscious mind contains everything good that you have inside of you. And it also contains the wisdom of thousands of generations that have been led forth in your DNA. But it also contains every bullshit limiting belief you ever have acquired too. Your unconscious mind isn't good or bad. You have to train it. So that's the other part about it.
What I was going to say was, you can trust your unconscious mind, but you have to trust the stuff that you put in there through practice. Like I knew what I know even with just a client, aren't recalcitrant resistant clients? Which would you rather have? 4 guys breaking into your car or a fucking client who refuses to take responsibility for their life? You know what I mean? Right. They're not dissimilar.
No.
And, to trust your unconscious mind with practice, whether it's juggling or raising a kid or doing whatever, the trust comes from practice, from knowing what you know, right? And then forgetting that you know it because you already know it, and sort of a thing. That's where the trust comes from. So have the intention. I'm going to go in here with this client and do that. I'm going to help them. Yeah. That's my intention, and I hold onto that sucker. But how I get there is. It doesn't matter. I don't care. I'd actually rather be surprised, find a new way.
I find that one of the most personally insightful places that I've found key points and distinctions about this idea of like train your unconscious and then forget it is Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee talks about this kind of stuff all the time.
Martial arts is full on,
yeah, that he talks about this idea of like you practice a technique and a pattern enough so that you can forget it. And then eventually you get to the place where you don't, like people ask, like, is Kung Fu better or this or this or this? And his idea is that there is no best way, that eventually if you practice enough different things, you get to the place where you just react perfectly to you do exactly what the situation calls for.
He was living Jeet Kune Do.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that applies from a hypnotic and NLP perspective perfectly. Yeah. That the goal is not what technique did Morgan use? Like 50 different ones? I don't know. Like even if we had video and we could break down everything, it wouldn't really be about this is the proper way to handle a situation like this.
Because who knows what those, maybe if those guys were on different drugs, it would have been a totally different scenario.
And hopefully the idea here is that you would have handled it differently. Right. Your intuition would have guided you in a different way. Maybe you wouldn't have approached it all. Maybe you would have approached in a different way. You would have approached a different guy first. Yeah. Whatever ended up happening, your unconscious led you in the direction where the outcome was satisfactory.
Right. Thank you, unconscious. And thank me for all the work that I put into being able to trust it. To do what I needed to do when the time is right. So, what is your Nicholas?
Okay, do? I will keep I'll keep mine short because that one went long, but it was so worth it. So I was talking to a client who What?
Wait, real quick. I've been meaning to, are we on the two frame thing, or did you?
Oh fuck! Yeah, remind me. Well, I'm still recording it, so when we upload it to YouTube, we'll have side by side. But boom,
whatever.
Let's do it this way. So on Facebook, it'll switch.
I'm doing that.
You mean remember to switch it? That's what you mean? Okay. So I was talking to a client who has been, a lot of the clients that I work with, I end up talking to them about purpose and about their mission in life and what it is that they're meant to do. It's because it's kind of one of my wheelhouses. It's one of the things I talk about a lot personally. So I tend to attract clients that want to work on that. So this client, I was having the typical conversation, which is the short version is there's no such thing as purpose. There's just whatever you choose. And some things are more in alignment than others. So at some point, you just got to pick something and start walking in that direction. And then eventually, the further details of the path will reveal themselves. But at first, you just got to feel into something and go, good enough, and start walking. So we were talking about one path, which, yeah, I can reveal this without revealing anything. So it was basically this client becoming a stage manager, like going and getting training to work as a stage manager because she loves theater and it just fit in so many of the different characteristics of her personality. And so she's been pursuing that for a little while here. And then just this last week, she came back and said, I think I've changed my mind. I think I want to go become a naturopathic doctor, which is something she's always said she's talked about a lot. So at this point, I am like, okay, if that's where your bliss is calling you, fine, good, great, more power to you. But I also am aware that the mountain to climb to become a naturopathic doctor is significantly taller than the mountain to become a stage manager, right? And so I'm like, all right, there's a quote from Steve Jobs, which I shared with her. The quote is, they asked him the most cliche question in the world, what's the secret to success? And he thought about it and he said, well, passion, but not for the reason that most people think. He said, passion is not some magical, mystical force that somehow makes whatever it is that you're going to do successful. He said, the only reason that passion is important, if you're going to really pursue something challenging and difficult and do something worthwhile, is because passion is the thing that will keep you going way past the point when any sane, rational human being would have quit and given up. So I basically took this as an opportunity to challenge her. And I wrote this anecdote down by calling it reverse psychology. So what I started doing was discouraging her from it. I'm like, listen, I'm not telling you don't do it. I'm not telling you it's a bad idea. If that's where your bliss is calling you, then you should absolutely do it. And let's be clear here. So I start listing all these fucking reasons why she shouldn't do it. Like, this is going to be a really, really long path. It's going to be way more expensive. Plus, I know lots of naturopathic and integrative medicine doctors, and most of them are miserable. Like, you got to think about the end result here. Is that the kind of life you even want to have? Plus, you realize even just because you get that degree doesn't mean you're going to make money. I've literally been in coaching masterminds with integrative medicine doctors who don't have any clients and are struggling to make ends meet. So I'm like, and I can feel her because I know her personality type. I know her meta programs, and I can feel her that the more I am discouraging her, the more determined she's becoming. So then at one point, about 3/4 of the way through my metaphor loops of all the reasons why she shouldn't do this, I then said, by the way, I know that by telling you all the reasons you shouldn't do it, you're only becoming more determined to do it. And I saw her brain. She's like, because she's like, well, now I'm telling. So wait, if I'm going to mismatch him, does that mean I have to do it or not do it? Or So then I switched it to talking about stage managing and being like, listen, Here's why stage managing might be a bad choice. Here's all the negative things about that. And then I switch to the positive things about the doctor path, and then the positive things about the stage managing path. Because genuinely, my intention is not to tell her what to do. My intention is to get her to let go of the stupid reasons why we do the things that we do and find the real reasons, the reasons that will actually propel you far enough that they'll actually take you all the way there. And that when you get there, you'll be happy you got there instead of going, oh my God, what did I just do with the last decade of my life?
Yeah.
So she came out of it in this place of going, like, I'm not sure what direction that I want to go, but she wasn't like confused, like, oh no, like now I don't know what to do. It was like, oh, it doesn't matter. Like I can pick either one and it's fine. Well, now I really got to think about it. What do I really want? And that was my goal. I wanted to get her to the place of going, the only thing that should be guiding you is your bliss. The only reason you should be making this choice is because of something inside you that tells you this is the right path.
Yeah, man, I work with a lot of people. Cool. It's a good one. I love the reverse, triple reverse. I work with a lot of people who are successful at their job, but then they're just not happy because there's not a lot of bliss in that sucker. And they're like, what did I do? And then they, a lot of them want to be coaches. I've had a lot of people, I know you work with a lot of coaches, but a lot of people I've worked with, I'm not the only coach they've worked with for different things or this or that, relationship, whatever, business. A lot of them want to actually go, I want to do this because I feel good here. Mm-hmm. This is like you get to be you and I want to be me. And wouldn't it be great if you could have all that money and success and actually enjoy whatever you're doing in life? That's the kind of thing that makes you wake up. And in fact, I'm going to save my quote that we were talking about, the whole Huxley or Orwell thing. We can save that for next time, and you can do your Huxley or your Huxley quote, or we talk about that if you want.
Yeah, fine.
And I guess this, or unless this is just too along the same lines, but when you said what you said about what Steve Jobs said, which loop am I in here? That it's the passion that gets you to move past the things and the obstacles. Yeah. So it's totally the key to motivation, and we talk about it probably every time we get together. Is the Nietzsche quote, who I'm told is a Nietzsche quote, that says, he who has a big enough why can endure any what. Mm-hmm. Which is basically along those lines of like, whatever it is, somebody wants to be a doctor, they're going to sit there through 4 or 8 years of whatever medical school. Somebody wants to learn how to play a beautiful concerto and make the girls cry, they're going to sit there and master their thing. I want to learn how to do a silly thing with my toys. I'm going to sit there for countless hours and try and figure it out because of my why. And that's the purpose. What is the purpose? What's your purpose? Are you living your life on purpose? Right? How much of your life?
In some of my advanced trainings, I talk about a triangle where on the bottom of the triangle is pain and pleasure, which are essential to understand and master if you're going to learn how to train your animal, because you are an animal first and foremost on the bottom. And at the top of the triangle is another P, which is purpose, which is that thing that will allow, I say it, human beings are capable of enduring any pain or postponing any pleasure for a big enough why, if they have a reason why. And then we get into this very Joseph Campbell metaphysical conversation about where does that why come from? And I ultimately believe that there is a place inside where that why comes from that goes beyond rational thinking, that goes beyond that's the place where if there is a God, that's where it lives. And if I had to say there's one thing that I worship, one thing that I follow, that I say I surrender to that thing, it's bliss. It's that force inside of me that is bigger and smarter and older and wiser than I am. And it's not synonymous with your unconscious. It's something your unconscious can tap into. I like to think of it as the human equivalent of the collective intelligence of ants. Like when you put a bunch of ants together, they're smarter than any one individual, but no one individual ant knows what the whole colony is doing. I think that Bliss is the human equivalent of that there's a thing that the human species is trying to do. And when you align yourself with Bliss, you're aligning yourself with your role in the collective, for lack of a better way to put it.
Right. And it just feels good.
And it feels good. Yep.
Cool.
Okay. So that was your quote.
That was my quote. But I also have, this might be an interesting thing for us to do if we have time on these sorts of things, is to review like any of the stuff from the week before that, like, because we talked last week about, you talked about not being afraid to challenge your clients, right?
Yeah.
Remember you said, oh, and this is thing, like, can I step up? Or is it last week or 2 weeks ago? One of those?
No, that was last week, I think.
Okay. And like, to actually step up and to be with rapport, to be that person who can reflect. And I got, somebody said to me, I spoke to them, some person I didn't know, but on a consult, I was giving a hypnotic gift, a little 20-minute taster. And that person said, she wrote in a testimonial that she put in a group that we're in, that this may sound strange, but I had forgotten what it was like to have an adult conversation with a like-minded person who can hold their own in a chat and who's not afraid to challenge me. I was like, holy shit, lady. That's exactly what we were just talking about. Thank you. So that's proof that stuff can be helpful and good in the right ways in the right situation.
There's a story that I remember a coach telling where he had an opportunity to go in and be interviewed to be the replacement for a coach that was retiring for this CEO of this company. So he's going in and he's being interviewed, and he comes in and they tell him right away, it's the CEO and his current coach who's retiring. And he said, they tell him right away, you're like the 15th coach we've interviewed and we're not going to hire you. So he's already like got nothing to lose. So he's like, to put it bluntly, we're already sure we found who it is, but why should we hire you? And he looks to the other coach and he says, be honest with me. Is there anything you wouldn't say to him? And the guy says, yeah. And he turns to the CEO and he says, that's why you should hire me.
Nice.
Because I don't give a fuck what you think about me.
Right. Nice.
I'm not scared of you. And my only goal is to help you get your intentions. And I will say or do anything to make that happen.
Nice.
And they hired him.
Nice. It's a good one. All right. Mm-hmm. Well done. Nice. So question time here at the
couple questions.
The NLP Corral. Let me see if I can find my question doc. All right. Boom. Preguntas por NLP. Okay. So this one, I'd be interested to know what you have to think, because I have, as someone who works for himself and who's worked in gyms a lot and just been a doodly guy at times, and I've even mentioned to you, swearing I swear more than I would like to. So the question is that I got from, I think this is from that same Facebook group of the people that we have been associated with, that says, any suggestions for in the moment swearing, which I can only assume just means like, how do I not swear in the moment kind of thing?
Well, let me just start by saying I would first examine the motivations. And so I want to examine yours.
Oh, sure.
Where's that coming from? For what purpose do you...
Why do it or why don't it?
Why don't?
Why don't?
Where's it coming from that you want to do it less?
I want it to mean more. I don't want to stop, but I want it to like mean more. And it's not like when I go to a business meeting, I'm like, fuck, dude, that shit's crazy. But there's times when, like I listened to one of these podcasts one time and I was talking to you like a bro, dude. And this is meant to be vaguely professional. And my only intention is to be vaguely professional anyways. But I was like, oh, this is like, there's a little too much. Like it loses its meaning when it's a filler for space or.
That's what I was going to say. So it's like verbal tick, or it becomes filler. It becomes unconscious.
That's what I mean.
You don't like it because it's unconscious.
Right.
You want to do it intentionally.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So the reason, dear listeners, that I ask that first is I want to figure out where it's coming from. And if it's coming from a place of shame or judgment, then I'm gonna work on that as the issue. Because when we try to repress something, it comes out unconsciously, like 100%. So if your challenge, if somebody is trying not to do it because they feel shame about it, if you help them resolve their shame, counterintuitively, they will often reduce the amount that they're doing it, or at least it'll start happening more intentionally. So in the moment swearing, I learned how to turn it on and off completely consciously because I grew up in a religious household where swearing was not allowed. So when I started swearing around my friends, I had to turn it off when I went home to hang out around my parents. Right. I actually, and listen, parents, if you don't like this, well, you're entitled to your opinion. And we decided early on that we were going to allow our son, who's now 10 years old, to swear when he wants to, because I don't believe in bad words. I don't believe that words are inherently wrong or whatever. And I wanted him to learn how they work at an earlier age. And I will tell you, there were some unintended side effects of doing that. However, one of the things, our rule is you're allowed to do it in the house or in the car, but you're not allowed to do it outside or anywhere else that other people can hear you because, and this is clear, other people find it offensive, especially when little kids say stuff like this. So he has become so good at turning it on and turning it off and being able to just do it in right context and not. And it slipped a few times and I was good at being like, what did you just say? And he would be like, oh. And then there's other things that we've had to do, which is, this is more about the thing you're saying is about doing it intentionally, is that we've had to train him that I like the metaphor, curse words are like salt and pepper. They're good in moderation. They're good in the right amount, but you put too much and it immediately ruins the dish. Right. So he did not understand how they worked. So there were times when he would just verbal diarrhea, like while he's playing video games or whatever. And we'd have to be like, whoa, dude. And so the benefit there is that I feel like we've been teaching him how to unconsciously feel how you're supposed to use them and the appropriate usage of it, which is not something I learned. And I actually have a specific memory of being a teenager and going to a LAN party and playing video games with a bunch of friends and swearing way too much. And like one of my friends coming over and being like, dude, you're like doing that too much. It's weird. And like, I was kind of a dick to him because I felt really ashamed and I didn't know how to manage it. So all that to be said, I would suggest that there is an unconscious strategy for how you know when to say it and when not to. And if you draw someone's attention by, I don't know, telling a series of metaphors to that strategy and allowing them to, especially someone who knows how to trust their unconscious and knows how you can just hand strategies over to your unconscious and say, hey, turn this down for me.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, and I have since whatever that time was, however many podcasts ago, if you look, it's from whatever I did was just be thinking more about not necessarily what I'm saying, but the fact that I am saying it and what the context is. And you know, like we're allowed to swear, but if it's like, it's like too much pepper and then all of a sudden the meal isn't equal. And it takes away from the nutritional value of whatever it is. And I can still bro down and talk to my dude friends. It's like a bunch of fucking whatever, bro. It's totally whatever. But it was a matter of, it's like I didn't need to do a switch pattern, although I've used that with people on that. If they can picture that time, it's the same kind of thing. It's like change your, you know, it's all the same. But yeah, that's a good one. And it's worked for me. I have someone I was talking to yesterday who was like, she did a swear fast. because she was like trying to quit cold turkey for a couple days, and she was like
For Lent.
Yeah. Lent coming up again? Yeah. Is it Lent?
Is it? No, I don't know.
It would have been Mardi Gras, but no. So yeah, okay. Thank you, sir. One more.
So real quick, for those of you who are listening, in case it wasn't clear, I just did what I would do potentially with someone, because Morgan expressed that he wanted to shift this. And I understand now you kind of already did, but I basically approached it as if Morgan was the client, and I just did what I would do. That series of metaphors that I just told, that was my intervention. I didn't explain what I would do. I just did it. So you can go back and re-listen to that. That's my process.
Right. Nice.
Okay. So do we have time for one more? I'll ask you the question.
Yeah, go ahead. We'll keep it shorty.
Okay. So this is a little bit wordy, but it says recently there's been a lot of conversations around spiritual bypassing, the idea that being positive can actually be quite violent to ourselves and others. How do you reconcile the idea that, quote, what you focus on expands, or where thoughts flow, energy goes, with this newer idea that only focusing on the positive can be problematic?
Well, yin and yang isn't fucking yin or yang for a reason, he said, cursing. It's balance between forces. You have to accept and understand that there is good and bad, and you can focus on the good, but if you do it at the ignoring of anything that's not good, you're living in, I think with Robert Anton Wilson called them bliss ninnies, right? Where you're just like, everything's just all good. And it was Pangloss, right? Although Pangloss had, I think he was trying to say, we live in the best of all possible worlds. Or like, is everything just great? So how does anything get better if everything's already all good?
Ooh, I like that.
Let's leave it at that.
So Tony Robbins had a way that he described it, where he said, he didn't call it violent positivity, but I love that phrase, where he said that positive thinking, he was very against positive thinking. And he would say, positive thinking is like looking at your garden that's full of weeds and closing your eyes and saying, there are no weeds in my garden. There are no weeds in my garden.
Yeah.
And that's delusional and it's not helpful. Yeah. On the other hand,
garden that is.
What's that?
Yeah, what a clean and awesome garden I have.
Right.
What a clean and awesome garden I have.
Right. On the other hand, focusing on only the weeds, if there are also flowers, right, or getting so absorbed in the weeds that they grow over you and suck you into them. Or another way to think about it is noticing the weeds, but not noticing that you even have a garden.
Yeah.
So what he said is apply the 80-20 principle. You should spend time focusing on the problem. And it's okay. That's not a bad thing. It's just don't spend 80% or 100% of your time focusing on the problem. Focus on the problem for 20%. And that includes feel your feelings. Acknowledge that you're feeling overwhelmed or you're feeling whatever emotions are coming up.
Or mad or whatever. It's like if you squash that stuff, you're just, then it's like what you resist persists, right?
Yep.
That's the thing. It's like, you're not helping by ignoring the problem. That's like if your kid was crying in the corner, you're like, my kid is happy. I have a happy kid. I'm happy and a happy love. Your kid's over there crying in the corner. Like you got to address the situation.
So in the way that you're able to only focus 20% on the problem is to really not resist it. Like what you said, that which you resist persists. There's another quote I love. Let it flow and let it go.
Yeah.
Like you want to feel emotions like babies feel emotions. They are the model for how you feel emotions. Let them come up and let them go.
I would say let go and let it flow.
Ooh. Right? Ooh, I like that.
You gotta let go before you can flow.
That's good. That's good. How does one let it flow? Let go. Yeah, and then let it flow and then it will go.
Yeah, and then you will.
And then you can shift over to the 80% of the time that you spend focusing on the solutions. So 20% on the problem, 80% on the solution.
Yeah.
I think that answers.
People who are all that other way just come off as like fake, even though they probably come from a good place. You know what I mean? Yeah. They've had maybe a bad time. They don't want to have any more bad times ever. So I'm only going to focus on good times, which is out of balance.
Yeah. I see it a lot with language police. And I don't mean like PC language. I mean NLP folk who get all up in their head about words. And they'll say things like, instead of I have to do my taxes, they'll say, I get to do my taxes. Mm-hmm. And like, you have to understand the word is a signal or a symbol of the feeling or the energy or the thought underneath it. If you're saying I get to do my taxes, but you're feeling I have to do my taxes, then the word doesn't mean anything. Yep. So you can even feel I get to do my taxes when you say I have to do my taxes. The internal experience is more important than the words. And the violent positivity, spiritual bypass thing often comes up in like people who are very focused on the words that they're saying. And that's not reality. The words are just the smoke and mirrors. If there is a reality, it's that internal experience. That's a good place to leave it.
Sure. Why not?
Have a date? Go have a coffee date.
You with the young lady that I met.
You to tell her the story of what happened after you left?
I was driving home. I called her. I was like, you're never going to believe this.
Nice.
All right, man. Well,
okay. We'll be on for next week.
Yeah, sure.
Peace, love, and NLP, folks. Like, comment, and subscribe. Please send your questions in because we are wanting to start a dialogue here with our loyal fan base.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, exactly. All right. Later, everybody. Bye-bye.